All right, so we're back, and it's time to finish off this little cast painting and put this one to bed that you guys working on your own. When you do it, just make sure that you can use a surface you're comfortable with. Try to build up your passages in a very methodical, relaxed manner. And you refer back to this video and the handouts. Have the handouts, the handout PDFs should suffice while you're doing your painting. But if you have to stop and go back because you forgot something or I would try to maybe do them obviously from the PDFs and don't have the video going while you're doing it or something. It's up to you. But that way you're kind of working on recall and you're trying to develop a nice recall. That means visual memory. And you can then, if you get in a conundrum or some situation you can't get yourself out of, then you could go back and rewind to that section of the video and get yourself through it. But try to do it on your, try to do it just through recollection, because it help you to start thinking on your own, thinking for yourself, which is really one of the pivotal things that an art school should provide for the student, is the ability for the student to learn to think and problem solve at a high level for themselves, not being reliant again on some great talented instructor coming around and fixing your stuff all the time and making it look really great. That's a lot of the problem happens with a lot of students as they go out and try to work. They have these portfolios full of images that were done at leisure during classes where they had an instructor assisting them, and maybe they spent 2 months on this piece with the help of their instructor, and now they've gotten a job opportunity with the looks of their portfolio, only to find that they now need to execute that same piece of that same quality, which is the expectation, because that's what was in their portfolio, in a fraction of the time, maybe a week or maybe 2 if you're lucky, with all the comps and the changes and the iterations going through the art director and all that kind of stuff. So now you're taking a 2-month effort that was done with the instructor's help and doing it by yourself in 1/2 the time or 1/3 the time. That a lot of times is an invitation to losing a job, is what that is. So we got to watch that. We got to start preparing you properly by getting you to think for yourself earlier on, so that you can get yourself through those problems without it being detrimental. No, I'm not mad. Just trying to learn to be a little more quiet every once in a while, give you guys some peace. When you do get quiet like that, just enjoy watching the brush move. Enjoy the brushmanship. Enjoy watching how the paint strokes are going down. Got a fair amount of paint built up, so I'm using a small round bristle, which is actually working really well. I'm going in and able to manipulate the tone in a very relaxed manner. When paint strokes go down with too heavy of a ridge, there's a little ridge on the paint right here, it almost starts looking like the paint is not part of the actual object but is glued on the surface. I'm not a huge fan of paint strokes that look like that. Now that's me personally. Maybe occasionally I've seen one that comes off the surface that much that isn't annoying and is actually quite nice, someone like Sargent or something, but I mean that's Sargent, for God's sakes, or Sorolla or something, but a lot of times it looks bad. So be careful when those strokes start to come off the surface and look kind of like, again, some stringy paint stroke kind of glued onto it. Just trying to get these little edges along, like where the arm's been broken off or whatever, and where it has this like these really nice little crisp edges, and there's a little one in the navel there, and just looking for those upper level edges or values that I want to put on to give it that last little oomph, that last little extra something that we that can give it just a nicer look, you know. After all, you know, we're telling a story. It's a story of a cast. It's a female cast. It's a torso. Yeah, it's not all that, but you know, while we're painting it, it should be our primary focus. It should be you know, again, my dad used to tell me, you know, just pretend like this painting's the only thing they're ever going to see from you, and that's what you're going to be remembered for. Every painting should be done that way. Wow. Really? Yep. So that puts a lot of pressure on you, but it also gives you this idea that no matter what, if you're willing to take the time to do an exercise, then it should be worth doing incredibly well. Otherwise, why are you doing it, and why would you do it? So never go into any of these exercises half-cocked, half-baked, half whatever, where you just kind of go in and say, oh, it's just a cast, and you know, I just got to get through these because Jeff told me to, and you know, I'm not that hot on it, but I mean, don't go there. Just, you know, every one of these is as important as any other one, and they're going to subsequently build on each other, and a momentum is going to be gained, and you're going to gather momentum through these exercises until ultimately you find yourself down the road 4 or 5 years from now executing these large, magnificent narrative scenes with, you know, 20, 30, or maybe 10 years down the road. It's hard to say, but depending on the complexity of what we're talking about. But all of a sudden, all these pieces of the puzzle that were put together one at a time, slowly and methodically, have now gained not only ingrained, but are now intuitive. And now you're able to stack them one on top of another and create these magnificent efforts. That's what you have to look forward to. That's why we're doing all this hard pick and shovel work. You're preparing for the magnificent efforts that that lay dormant right now in your subconscious or in you, and you don't even know what they are yet. They haven't even taken flight because the skill is not there to give them flight yet. And once you have it, all of a sudden they will appear, and you will have the skills with which to execute, and then you can deliver them with virtuoso level of execution, and the public will be clamoring to either buy them or view them or see them, you know, and it'll just be a wonderful, wonderful experience for you. That's where we're heading. That's why we're doing these little burn umber studies from a cast here in the early stages of your development, or maybe you're going back and you're pretty far in your development, but you never got this stuff, and you're going back on the back end and trying to get it. Well, kudos to you for going back and doing it, because I know how hard that is. It's hard to go back and do studies that are more rudimentary when you've tasted color and other things. And that's why I'm trying to get you guys to do these early on, because it's hard to get you to do them after I introduce you to the color. As much as I still like doing them, you know, it is hard to get people to back off and say, oh yeah, by the way, just take all your colors away now and just use the Zorn palette, or just use monochrome, or just use burn umber white. People just, boy, they just don't like that. They really want to go back to their colors, go back to their stuff, even if they're not very good at it. They just love it. They've been mesmerized. They've opened Pandora's box, you know, and now they're just having a hard time going back. A little reference up there kind of got bent. I'll bend it back down so I can see what's going on between what I'm seeing and what you're going to be seeing. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, not really, but it'll work. Pretty far along now. Main thing is, again, I want you to stack everything in your favor as much as possible. So I'm just kind of going in right now, and I'm actually, getting some of these folds, which are really quite generic folds. I mean, they're not anything to write home about, that's for sure. That's okay though. They're not Bernini, let's put it that way. But that's one of my favorites is, Bernini, Michelangelo, studying drapery, hair design, hands, from people that had to do it in marble, for God's sakes. I mean, what a hard medium. I'm talking about a medium that's unforgiving. I know they had techniques for scaling things up and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter what you were using, it would have been, man, that would have been tough. The values on the cast are a lot more subtle and closer together through this region. So I've made them a little darker, and now I'm fighting to kind of lighten them a little bit, bring them back down to a more subtle juxtaposition between the value scales. So sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you'll come in a little heavy and maybe anticipating some blending that was going to occur that maybe didn't occur to the extent that you were thinking it was going to. And now you've got to kind of do some adjustment. It's okay. Adjustments are going to be made either way, whether you come in and hit the exact value that you wanted first time and what seems to be there, and then only to do some blending later on that needs to be done, and then find that the value no longer holds now. That can commonly occur, and when it does, it just is what it is. You're then caught fixing it the other way. So there's always adjustments that need to be made, and it's not so much that we should try to prevent that from happening, but we should accept it when it does happen and enjoy it. Well, I say enjoy it, but fix it with a good countenance. Don't throw a tantrum. The shadow in here has gotten a little different. It's a little smaller than what's on the photo, and I'm not quite sure. I think I just kind of got it a little low. It's kind of a bit of a fix, so I don't think I'm going to do much with that right now. It's something I'm conscious of. It's not a deal breaker by any means. Something I just want you to be aware of too, that I was aware of it and I commented on it, so that when you do your own, maybe you make that little adjustment. It's not much of one, just a little adjustment in there, but nonetheless, I think I should probably comment on it a little bit. Just let you know that I'm aware of it. About 2 minutes left to make these last adjustments that I want to make, to get it as good as I can within the time frame that I've allocated for myself. I think sometimes having a deadline time deadline is really, really extremely good for everybody. The key is just learning to drop your values really close together. Squinting constantly at your reference, squinting at your painting, looking for the illusion to be the same, trying to get that same play of edge that's really subtle, trying to fight for little tiny juxtapositions of edge, fighting as much as you can to get those subtleties, and just using every ounce of patience and observational ability you have to make sure that you just do the best job you can always. Stacking one success on top of another until ultimately you have such momentum going and such consistency that you're in very safe territory, and then it's just a matter of time before you get incredibly, incredibly good. And that'll have to do with a lot of different factors, but that's the way it happens from what I can see. All right. Okay, so we've wrapped that. Now I'm going to take a break, and you can either continue on to do your study of this, and maybe it'll be a couple days before I see you again, but when I do, we will be venturing into the male cast and working from, actually we're going to be doing the back view, of this burnt umber one. So we're going to still have one more painting to do of this same female, but from the opposite direction, and then we'll move into the male cast. So good luck, and I will see you soon.